All right, I'm here in the Aquarium, recognizing that postmodernism encourages you to look outside of your own narrative. So in the same way that these fish don't really question the water that they're in, postmodernism wants you to question the very air you breathe and the power structures around you and the narratives that you claim. Now, Stanley Hauerwas, a theologian who argues against postmodernism, says that postmodernism advocates that you have no story except the story you chose when you had no story. Now, it's a little bit of a confusing piece, but it's essential to say that you aren't anybody until you decide who you're going to be. Now, we often remember talking to our grandparents or ancestors, realizing that they were Italian or Hispanic or English, maybe they were German, but these days we tend to not talk about that lineage. Sometimes we do talk about ourselves, about whether we are Methodist or Baptist or Christian or not, but most of those labels are labels that we have chosen. They're not labels that we've inherited. So what postmodernism is saying is that you can make yourself into whoever you want to be. You can think about movies that advocate for postmodernism. It would be the movies of the Matrix trilogy. It also would be the movies like Inception, and also even Groundhog Day to some degree is a experiment in postmodernism. Now, within postmodernism, this idea of choosing your narrative is interesting. As Christians, we've already chosen our narrative. Our parents or grandparents have brought us to church, most likely encouraged us to be baptized. We have chosen a story of being an adopted child of God's. And so the redeeming parts of postmodernism is that you no longer have to make an argument based upon other people's absolutes. We can choose the absolutes that we have, such as being created by God. The world's been created by God, that God intends for us to find salvation, that we are perfected in following the Holy Spirit, and that discipleship is an act of improving our character and being the hands and feet of Jesus. So instead of having to argue on someone else's terms, claiming a postmodernist approach allows for you to choose your narrative. I've been talking about this a lot lately. This is the narrative that you choose, and so it needs to be consistent and coherent. Now, postmodernism has no desire for you to be consistent or to be coherent. You can change stories, change absolutes. You can change a lot of things within the postmodernist approach. I think the curriculum that we're using makes a bad representation of what postmodernism is. Not everybody is leftist, not everybody is atheist, but this idea of communicating within the redeeming parts of postmodernism, i.e. that you have a story and you've chosen it. So let's make sure that the narrative makes sense. Imagine watching the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and all of a sudden there are four bears, or Goldilocks has an AK-47 magically, or that Goldilocks is able to fly, or she's part of the Marvel superheroes family. If it didn't start out in the beginning of the story, it's inappropriate to enter it into the story or to exit it from the story in the middle of it. A narrative has to have a whole. It has to have a plot movement with guaranteed characters, with a twist, with something that needs to be resolved, and then a denouement at the beginning, or in the middle, as we go towards the resolution. So remember that postmodernism is less about deconstructing everything, but rather constructing a narrative that is situated within a particular group of people. Now, in America, we want to say you can write your own story. But remember, in the church, God has written our story already. So using the tools of postmodernism, we can have a great debate with others based upon our own narrative, not based upon theirs. All right, time to go up for air. The fish are getting a little bit hungry. Talk to you later.